When I start teaching the shed, I used the packed pen to begin with. It helps to desensitize the dog to being close to livestock. It is obedience correcting. If you have never done packed pen work, please let me know and I will give you some more clarification. Right now, what I'm doing is walking the dog around the stock on a loose lead. I make sure that I can go both directions and am always between the dog and the stock. If the dog is behaving, I don't do anything other than walk. Once I get to that point that the dog can handle that pressure, I then stop, face the sheep, take my time, and begin to work my way through the flock of sheep with the dog by my side, and I do all the moving of the livestock. The dog just tags along. The sheep should stay quiet, and so should the dog. I work this a couple of times each direction. Again, the idea is to get the dog used to being close to the sheep without working them. There is no hurry. Take time. Don't get in a rush. When you do packed pen work, you can only take 5-6 minutes at a time before the dog's brains try to explode. Once I get the dog to where it can calmly walk through the sheep, which may take several times, several days, it depends on each individual dog. I then begin to work on recalls. I step away from the dog toward the sheep, make a hole with the dog on a line. Then I call the dog to me and back the rest of the way through the sheep. When I get to that point that I can do it that way, I will take and let go of the line and ask the dog to come through the sheep without me controlling it by a line. Again, it's important to not have anybody upset or wound up. I back into the sheep just like before, and I get the dog to focus on me and come through. Just come through. That is the most important part of the shed. Once I can walk through the stock, I then practice going around the stock but still want the dog to come through. So I make another hole. I use my hand to give the dog a marker. All my dogs know to come to my hand no matter what happens. It is something I teach them as puppies, and it comes very handy later on. I use the word here to call my dog in. That's my preference. But that way the dog always knows, no matter what the situation is, if I say here and offer my hand, the dog should come to my hand. When you feel comfortable with the dog being able to do it without you holding onto the line or dragging a line, you can then move on to the next step, which is totally removing the line. Now, the line I have on Quill today is a very short line, but you are more than welcome to use a 15-20 foot line so that you can keep hold of it to bring your dog straight. The dog is not to be going toward the sheep. Now that I've removed the line, I'm going to make my hole, or try to. Shedding is a very, very confidence building exercise. I flanked her around. She didn't want to stay there. She wanted to come in too early, so I had to stop, flank her again. There's the hole. I pull her through. You notice that that was a much smaller hole that time. That's the goal. Every time, if your dog can handle it, the hole should be smaller and smaller until the final time with this big group of sheep when you don't make a hole and the dog does. Watch her just pushing past the sheep as she comes through. When you get to this point,